Okay, it's Back to the Future with, as I once said in the BAI folio, Hank Kee.
My shuttle is humming.
Oh, you know, you probably heard, for those who haven't heard this before, but I think I've said this more than once, okay? My introduction to Dave Metzger was, he was the program director at WBAI, and he contacted the New York Club about getting someone to do a radio show, and three of us showed up, and Dave Burstein was one of the three people, and he was in charge of the folio. The folio was like, what can you expect, you know, the next month in programming. Most people don't have it now. Now it's online. And they listed all the people who did shows, and BAI has over 200 volunteers, or we call them non-paid producers, all right? And Dave Burstein misspelled my name. Instead of Hank, it was H-O-N-K. I was the only honky on stage.
But your nickname was Stud Bubbles.
Unbelievable. Okay, now, whether you run Linux or OS X or Windows, you get a screen like this, and forget about what I have on top of it. Those are programs. In other words, these are programs external to the operating system. And the question I always ask is, what can you do? What can you do? Gee, did you know you could do a lot of stuff without any of this stuff here? And however, you're so used to graphic interfaces that you need something, right? Okay, so I just want to go through what is an operating system to begin with. Let me bring this up. About, I hate to admit this, but about 67 years ago, that's a long time, 67 years ago, I remember being at NYU here, and I met a gentleman who just started a computer lab, and it was Dr. Courant, and he's the one that established the computing program here at NYU 67 years ago. And at that time, there was no such thing as a computer course or a computer science course, anything like that. And they said, you know, I said, gee, I was, you know, going to college, and they said, what do you want to study? I said, I don't know. So the only thing I could do was that, you know, I have to admit, I was a lazy student. I had to work. I worked about 20, 30 hours a week while going to school. So I took a major that I didn't have to study for, and I majored in math and physics. That was the easy stuff for me. Okay? I remember I had to take a language. Good thing it was a written language, it was a written foreign language. I memorized the whole manual, you know, so this way I could at least pass the course. I didn't have to give a verbal answer. Okay, so...
which language was it?
Huh?
Which language was it?
German.
German.
Okay. The reason why I say that is because when I was in college, I had a bunch of roommates, you know, in the dorm, and three of them happened to be German, okay? And the last one was the most interesting, okay? His first name was Klaus, okay? His last name was Klaus Wall, okay? He gets up in the morning, now he's an early bird, I'm a late owl, all right? He wakes me up by clicking his heels.
You made that up.
No, I didn't make it up, he really did. And I had another one, his name was Ronald Schnell. And I call him Mark Schnell, okay? Okay, now, so when I got out of school, I didn't know what, you know, so I remember I was hired by RAND Corporation, and I went up to California, and they said, we got a project for you to work on, and it's a vacuum tube computer. And it was, okay? So, but let me get to this, all right? Now, what I want to talk about is threefold. One is the basis of an operating system, so you have a better understanding of it. Like, I put a lot of hardware together. When you put your hardware together, where you have to solder each part and you have to trace it, you have a better understanding, as you probably know. I could answer a lot of questions on what goes wrong because you've gone through the part. Same thing with software, okay? Now, in the case of so I thought that if I give a presentation, let's go back to the beginning of an operating system, and I played on the name DOS Dossier. How was I to know Julian Assange got arrested today, you know? So DOS is really disk operating system. Now, you're going to read a whole lot of stuff what was the first disk operating system? Everyone's got it wrong, okay? The first disk operating system was IBM in 1965. Okay, that's when they came out with it, and it was on a diskette, 8-inch diskette. Okay, and they actually use that for diagnostics. And the word dossier is a fancy word. Okay, you hear, it's in the news now. It's nothing more than a bunch of papers put together. Now, in the early days, there were 3 ways of inputting a program. One was an 80-column punch card. Everyone's familiar with that. The other is a 90-column punch card. Many of you are not aware of that, but that was Remington RAND, the UNIVAC, was 90 columns. And the most popular was not those 2. It was a Friedan paper tape reader. Okay? And that's what I worked with back in '59. All right? And what it is that you take a little piece of paper, you tack it onto your program, the bootloader. You put it right in the beginning, and you read in the paper tape, and then you branch to the first instruction, and then you ran your program. Now, when the 1401 came out, what IBM did was, here's a card. It's a bootloader. Okay, run it. Okay, you put it in front of your punch cards. You read in the cards, and with that one card, that's a bootloader, and then you start running your program. Now, back in the 50s, there was a program called SAGE, Semi-Automatic Ground Environment. It was an air defense program. They originally called it SAGS, and they said, no, better change it to Semi-Automatic Ground, not system, but environment, because SAGS means like it doesn't go well, right? And that was the first one that started where you had a monitor. The monitor was called PEC, Program Environment Control. And this is what I worked on. This was the original one. It was a modified IBM 701 vacuum tube.
Wow.
And they were supposed to come with 32 regional centers. They got to 3 regional centers, and transistors came out, and these $15 million per machine sort of like went out the window, whole staff got laid off, okay? But and the reason why they had to come up with a monitor was a plane comes in. We had a very tiny storage, and they said, okay, now before we take down, we had a missile then. Before we take down the incoming missile, you got to do a whole lot of things. One is, what is the altitude that the plane is running in? What's the weather condition? What's the wind? You can't fit all that in, so you had to bring in all the different pieces. So this thing was written so that you could say, based on what I need, bring in the next module, and so on. This is the first beginning of what a monitor is, what we now call an operating system.
Were there pictures on it or just...
Huh?
Were there pictures on the monitor or just...
Pictures? No, this is all in English. Okay? Actually, it wasn't even English. It was like, like the characters were from A to Z, comma, No, it looked like a keyboard, okay? Yes?
You were there before video line. You were there before CRTs, weren't you?
Yes.
701, yeah, before CRT.
Okay, now look,
Teletype.
I'm going to try to fit everything in. There's 3 things I want to cover, okay? One is really, I intend to spend no more than 5-10 minutes on, how all this evolved. The other thing I want to do, the second part of it, of the 3-part, is I want to give you the references ahead of time, not wait until the last minute, on where you can get the information. And the third is I'm going to try to highlight some of the tricks that I do with it, okay? So now, this machine, they started installing in 1958. And in 1961, they stopped it because it was vacuum tube, okay? In the transistorize, the transistors came out in 1958, and the first models like the 1401, the 701, and so on, was in the, not 701, the 7040 and so on, 7044 was 1960 on, so that's a transistor stage. Now, let's move along into the 70s, okay? When the microprocessors came out, Gary Kildor, unfortunately, he died in an airplane accident. I met him. and he's quite a character. He worked for the U.S. Navy, and he was teaching computing, and he had a whole class of people, and he was doing this on the PDP, and he decided to write a little thing because he had to bring in students, programs, let them run. So he put a little monitor, and he called it CPM, and the default is command line, meaning it's all text. This is what's meant by command line, all right? And in '74, well, let me get to the next one. Okay. There were 2 releases of it. The initial one was called CPM 1.3, and I brought to his attention that, hey, guess what? That's a great operating system. I'm going to print it. I'm going to publish it free of charge to everyone. He said, you what? I said, you work for the Navy. So what does that have to do with it? You work for the government. It's public domain.
It's in the public domain.
So he made some modifications and he came up with CPM 1.4, okay? So that lasted for, we were good friends, okay? I mean, he didn't take it out on me, but that lasted for about maybe 1-2 years, and then CPM 2.2 became the standard. And basically the way he did it was called a BIOS. Now everyone heard the term BIOS, and everyone used the term BIOS as a setup. But it was more than a setup. The other part was a BDOS, it's a logical I/O, and then the others are the run and call commands. And this is actually all buried in here, very similar in Windows, in Linux, in Unix, and so on. Run and call commands. And then you have little utilities that go with it. They're like the editor, the assembler, and so on. Now, the BIOS is a physical I/O. And this is something where I remember writing the interfaces to go to CPM. I did 2 of them. And every time you had like a new floppy drive, like I had a Micropolis floppy drive, it was hard sector, 16 holes in the middle instead of the soft sector. And you have to be able to read it in 1 character at a time, and then build that 1 character at a time, and create a message out of it. And so that's a physical link-up, all right? So in other words, you have to know what you're communicating with. In those days, we had the teletype 35, 1 character at a time. And now, even when the communications, you see, like we talk about megabytes and so on, they still come in 1 byte at a time. Actually, 1 bit at a time, okay? Now, the BDOS is the logical I/O, is how you, in other words, we create a file, all right? Now, you have to, in those days, you have to create, how do you want to create a file? Like, you want to have a fixed file, how big are the files, cluster sizes, and so on. And then you have these command cores, like one of the cores I can tell you is called PIP, okay, Peripheral Interface Program, and in DOS terms, it's called copy, all right? It's a funny thing is that PIP would mean I have a peripheral command, and I want the destination followed by the source. In DOS, you copy the source to the destination, okay? So this was CPM, it was very popular, yes.
When you did programming, did you do zeros and ones or letters? When you did the first programming, did you use zeros and ones or you use letters? Like run.
The first programs I wrote was all machine language, 1 bit at a time. The machine I worked on was 32 bits of left half word and right half word of 16 bits. Okay? And we debugged using just looking at numbers. Okay? By the way, that's true programming. You really have to. Yes?
Did you ever, you then use the IBM, what is it, manual assembly sheets, right? And the pencil. See, you were back in the pencil.
You mean assembler?
Yeah.
Well, in my days, we did machine programming, and I was sitting in a big room with everyone else and said, there's a new program coming out, okay? It's called assembler. Okay, so let me continue, all right? So this was CPM, and so from 1976, now the club started in 1975, and we heard about this in 75, everyone latched onto it, so for about 6 years, everyone's running CPM, okay? Now this was before IBM came out with the PC. When they came up with their PC, they took this structure, all right, and they basically did some modifications to it. Now, what happened was that IBM went to Microsoft saying, hey, we got a machine coming out August the 6th, and we need a monitor to run on it. And Microsoft says, we have a basic interpreter that you can run. And they say, how do you run it? They say, well, you load it, you key in the stuff and whatever you have, and then you bring in the program. No, we want a monitor. Microsoft didn't have a monitor, okay? It just so happens that Tim Patterson in Seattle Computer, what he did was, he knew that the 8086 was coming out, and the CPM was for 8080 and Z80 processors. So what he did was, he knocked off a little program, and it was called the DOS. Originally did not mean disk operating system. It meant dirty operating system. Quick and dirty operating system. No, it's a quick thing you put together, and it's only 4,000 lines. That's very little. Okay, very little, and he fit everything into 8K memory, 8K characters. Okay, and now when IBM came up with it, what they did was, okay, we got the monitor, and what they did was the BIOS, instead of everyone writing their own, we will standardize with equipment, and you will use those equipment if you want to run IBM. Like the cassette driver. Everyone heard of cassette, right? Okay, I ran applications using the cassette. No, don't laugh. I wrote my own sort on it too, okay?
Remember how long it took to load?
It didn't matter. I paid for doing the work, okay? So now the BDOS, which is the logical I/O, what they did was they combined the logical I/O with the run commands, okay? That's why you don't hear the term BDOS anymore, okay? Now, do you know what is so unique about this when you look at this? Who runs Linux? Okay, a couple of you. Do you know that you have the same structure? What it is that they use the same BIOS that's in the machine. It's the same BIOS. And what did Linux Torvalds come up with? The BDOS, the logical I/O, and all the new devices. And you know where the run and call commands come from? Richard Stallman with GNU. Actually, Linux is called GNU, he calls it GNU Linux, okay? But it's, GNU Linux. So basically, you have the IBM defined setup. Everyone uses this. Every time you add a device, they update the hardware with it, and they combine the logical I/O. Here's the way you're going to do it, all right? Now, it turns out that this started off differently with Linux, but what happened was that now you can see you can move files between Windows and Linux. So this looks very much like what's for the PC, and then you got these run and call commands, all right? And then you have all your utilities there, sorting and so on. Okay, that's DOS 1.0. Okay, and these are, I'm going to go through this very quickly. By the way, what number DOS was the last release? Does anyone know? Anyone want to take a guess?
6. That was the last one.
Wrong.
Oldest DOS.
7.
It's 7.
No, that was Windows.
Okay.
That was included.
No. There were three providers of DOS. People don't realize that one is called, it started off as DOS, and then if you run this on a non-IBM machine, it was called MS-DOS. If you run it on an IBM machine, it was called PC-DOS.
Right.
And then someone like Gary Kildor says, hey, I want a piece of the action. So he did reverse engineering on DOS, and so he just kept up with it, and he called his DR-DOS. So actually there were three authors of it, all right? And as you can see, this is the timeline for the very beginning. And by the way, when DOS came out, and I said August the 6th, I think I'm correct. You know what August the 6th also is in 1961, besides the introduction of the IBM PC?
You mean 1981? You said 61.
I'm sorry, 1981, right. I was jumping ahead to 1945. Hiroshima.
Oh my God.
Okay. Now, just to let you know, when it first came out, the introduction was in Chicago, Went out to Chicago, I got that IBM PC, it cost me $3,500 with 3 cassettes on it.
Wow,
Those are my tape drives.
damn.
Okay. So as you can see, this is how it progressed, all right? So when the AT came out and the XP, the Junior, when it came out, all right? And the token ring network, so you can see all the pieces that developed on it. And then in '88, the DOS 3.1, okay? And then this is Orders 6 series over here. Now, for IBM, the last 6 was 6.22. And as you can see, then Microsoft and IBM had an argument. So they went off in different direction. And the last one was IBM took the, really MS-DOS, put in the optimization, and they put the stacker in, which is the compression routine. All right, and this is now heavily used, the compression. What in Windows 10, to minimize the amount of space it takes, a big part of the operating system is compressed. So you got to be careful that you know, if you take it out of memory, you've got to reload it. It's got to expand the stuff again each time, so it's going to run slower. I find that with Windows 10 on a what's Fred? He's sitting back there, okay? He gave me a machine, he said, maybe you can do something for the club with it. And I try to run Windows 10 on 1 gig memory. It doesn't run. And yes, it runs, but I'm sitting there, I'm saying, why is it taking so long? It's because it's going through that compression. I got to find a different memory chip if I can find it anymore. Okay, so now, this is, I'm going to give you where you can get a source of information. In total, there's about, I don't have any official number because I had to go from different places to find out where all the commands are. Microsoft does not publish every command. You have to go through the coding if you can get to it. If you can't, you just have to find out what people have. So at least with the Windows commands and so on, at least with these, I have 5 sources that you can go to. These are the first 2 of the sources, all right? And I will make this available. If you got a picture, go take the picture now, you know. All right, now, I'm going to go through some stuff that, some of these commands, and some of it you'll probably heard of, like dir, I think, that, you know, how many people go into command mode in the Windows? Like directory dir? You mean no one? Just a few? Oh, you could do great things with dir, okay? So let me do this, and okay. Now, to get into command mode, in the lower left-hand corner, if you key in CMD, do not hit execute. Do not hit return. CMD will then pop up in the search, okay? Now, you have 2 choices at that time. You can go, in fact, let me just do it, all right? That's easier. Okay, you see that? CMD, and you see where it's sitting on CMD? Okay, now, you have 2 choices. If you put the cursor on and you enter, you are in non-administrative mode. Okay, and if you do a right click on it, now I'm going to do administrative mode, okay? My recommendation is that the first time you run it, do not run in administrative mode. Administrative mode means you can get in and change the operating system so drastically that you can fail. Okay, so, whoops.
Welcome to Windows 10.
Remind me tomorrow. CMD,
That happens when people do weather on the TV.
yeah. It's going to snow tomorrow,
Somewhere.
so I'm going to run as administrator. Okay? Get this, and you can open it up, all right? Now, most people are familiar with DIR.
Hank, can you change the font size so we can see it better?
What are let me make this. Okay, now, let me do this, all right? Okay, I'm sitting, I know, if I make it any bigger, then I show less, okay? So right now, it's sitting at the root under Windows in the System 32, in other words, where the operating system cores are, and it's a lot, all right? If I do a CD backslash, that means I bring it up to the very root level of the C drive. So if I do a dir, that's it, okay? This is at the root level. And if I do CD users, this is where the user area is. Now, I'm able to do this because I am in administrative mode, all right? And users, and every one of my machines is called owner. I don't use my name, okay? And then I do CD owner. Okay, now, if I do a dir/w, okay, I can get width. I can do, so there's a whole lot of stuff that you can do with this, all right? If you want to know what else you can do, say help, dir. And these are the things you can do with the directory. And in the old days, we used to call this semaphores, okay? And then it became flags, and now we call them switches. I don't know what else we're going to call them next, all right? And you can see, so you could say slash this and so on, so that although if I do a directory, I'm sitting here, all right? But if I were to say directory, star dot, oh, let's say exe programs /s, okay? The switch is the subdirectory. In other words, go through all the subdirectories, all right? And now it gives you the directory of all the subdirectories, okay? Okay. This is a non-loaded machine. This is you know, with this machine, I do downloading. I don't care if you crap it out. So I have a very minimal on it. Now, this is it right here. Now, notice that I am in I have different subdirectories, right? Okay. Now, there's another command that's called xcopy. Xcopy is like copy, except that you could add a lot to it. So let me go back to the top. If I did an xcopy, star.exe, okay, all right. In other words, I want to know where I want to copy all the executable commands, all right. And let's say I go into C:, backslash, box, /s. What do you think that's going to be?
It's going to be all the subdirectories of that folder box. Oh.
Huh? Okay, so if I were to...
You said box, you typed Bob.
Huh? What did I say?
You said box, but you typed Bob.
Oh, I'll change it then. Bob. Okay, Bob.
But it's still the folder box.
Yeah. What happens is that wherever I see an executable, identify it, copy it into Bob. Now, why am I showing you this? Have you ever thought about backing up and you say, gee, I got some doc files here, some doc files there, some doc files here, there, and so on. And what do I preach? Back up, back up, back up. And you say, it's a dog, okay? This is a simple way of just saying, if you find all my pictures, it could be JPEGs, okay? It could be PNGs, it could be XLS, okay? Now, if you want to get all the doc files, let's say, all right? You could say star.doc star. This way you get DOC and DOCX. Did I lose anyone on that? So that's a very quick way of doing it. Okay? Okay. Any comments so far? All right, so another one that now another nice command is have you ever thought about whether your operating system's up to date? How do you know it's up to date?
Because Windows tells me.
WINVER and it tells me what version I'm running. I'm not up to date. It should be 1809. Am I at 1803? Yeah, I didn't give a chance to update, okay? It should be 1809.
How do you know what the latest is?
How?
You,
Very easy. I read.
what do you read?
Okay? Now, suppose I want to know what do I have in the machine? How would you do it? If you want to know what's in your system? MSINFO32. It tells you how much memory you have, what year the BIOS came out, the model number of the machine, how much memory you have, and the whole,
What was that command?
What happened to the
huh?
I think the left screen died. We probably can't fix it.
I'm not going to fix it, okay? I'm gonna
Yeah, just keep going.
Hey, what was that command again? MS?
MSINFO32. Okay? And of course, I can click through all that, all right? Now,
Yeah, that makes it complicated, but getting more info to use.
okay. Now, a typical command that most everyone uses, at least I think everyone uses, is Ipconfig. Okay, okay. In other words, if you can't get on the internet, and I'm not on the internet as you can see, so I have no subnet, I have no DNS. I'm missing it, okay?
That's why you're president.
Thanks, Dave.
Okay, so these are the commands that are available. So on that list that I showed you, you can find, by the way, on the list, on one of those sheets, there's 285 commands. I'm not going through the 285 commands. I'm just going through the more interesting ones that you probably like, okay? And another one, I'm not going to execute, but I'll show you what the form is. Sfc Scan Now. All right? And what that does is that it will go through your operating system. It will check for the integrity of your operating system. If any part is corrupt, it will replace it with the correct code. And so, in other words, if you had a virus, you want to know, was your operating system corrupt? If you run that command, it will check it. So you have a lot of great stuff in there. Now, if I told you to use Windows to do it, you can't do it. Yes?
I don't know what the current one has, but there used to be that list of commands under CMD, that you got a list of commands.
I'm going to go through it with you, okay?
No, I mean, can you still call for it from the system?
The answer is yes, but if I go too far ahead of that, I'm
Okay,
going
never mind.
All right, now, I'll just go through, verbally something like this. There's a command called FC, file compare. Compare two files to tell you what the differences are, all right? For those who want to have a dual boot, how do you go out and create a new partition so you can do a dual boot, triple boot, and so on? So there's a whole lot of commands there, and let me just close this. Okay, and these are the more, I haven't gone through all of these here, but like for instance, I went through Xcopy, WinFur. If you want to know, if you want to go through your task list and kill a certain task quickly, because sometimes when you hit the Control-Alt-Delete, do you hope to get the task manager? It takes a while to come up. But if you can somehow get to it, you can just do it manually, very quickly. You could do a ping, okay? You say ping to say, hey, do I see my router there? All right, so now this is only what, 14 commands out of 285 on that list that I'm going to go through with you. Okay, now, a couple months ago I talked about God mode. Everyone knows what God mode is, right? You forgot?
Everybody wants to do it.
Okay, now, in Windows, when you go through navigating through Windows, like control panel, you go to system, you got advanced, and you know, if you want to get to a certain point, there's a whole lot of navigating you gotta go through, all right? Well, unfortunately, when I get questions like that, I try not to answer them because the first thing I ask is, are you running Windows Home or are you running Windows Pro? The navigation's not the same, okay? So there's a different way of doing it. Now, if you notice, there's something called God mode, all right? And this is the key here. What you do is you copy this out, and I'll show you. I'm going to do a copy. Whoops, where'd it go?
I think you have to be in edit mode.
Let me get out of here. Okay. All right, I do a Control C is a copy. Now, I'm going to do a right click, new, folder, Control V. Oh, too many characters.
You're not allowed to curly brace,
Huh? Let me go back to that. Too many characters with
Best is to paste it into a notepad and then put it inside the folder.
rename.
EOS would be nice.
Well, what happens is that if you, I can't see right now, but if you rename it with that patch, then you have all the commands there. Let me try it again.
Invalid character. Third time's the charm.
I think I'm missing a character here.
Eliminate the C
Huh?
at the bottom.
Eliminate the C?
Yeah, I think so.
No, no.
No, eliminate the brackets.
Huh?
It's refusing to do the curly brace.
Yeah, you can't have those brackets.
Oh, you're right. Hang on.
Oh, yeah, it's probably.
Are you sure?
Yeah, take out the
90%.
curly brace and you should have it. The dashes are allowed.
Come on.
That you should be able to do.
Let's hope that works. I don't think it's going to work. Oh, there it is.
It'll work.
Okay. No, it's empty. No.
If you
I
paste
got,
it,
I got a character in there that's not supposed to be there.
Hank, try pasting it into the run command there,
Run command?
I've done it from the
You
start
done it from the
menu.
run command?
Yeah, start menu there, where you type in the search.
You gotta say God mode, okay?
That's it. Drop back to the search mode in the search mode.
Yeah.
Run command, right here, right?
Yeah, try that.
Well, I don't want to waste anyone's time, but if you were to do it, and I should have, I had it running, and then I took it off, so I'm going to show you how to do it, but I have the documentation here, and if you go through the documentation, you go through the different steps of what happened was that when I keyed it in, it brought in the document. Okay? And these are the instructions to do it, okay? Let me close this. All right. Now, all those different versions of DOS, you can say, gee, I like to play with it. And if you were to go to this location, boot disk, because you can download the operating system and not have Windows. Why would you want to do it? You may have a flash drive, you know, a flash drive, and you could load DOS on it, and you can get those commands without saying, I gotta have a Windows running. In other words, if the machine doesn't work, or you cannot load up Windows at all, or the machine doesn't, come up right, what you do is that if you download the boot disk area, pick an operating system, load up a flash drive, takes up a very small amount of memory, and it'll come up and you can then play with it, DIR, and find out what's in it. Also, I have people do this for another reason. Sometimes when they have a machine where they cannot bring up the operating system at all, I said, put this on a flash drive, and you could boot up, and then you could see the hard disk drive, and copy all your files out and do your backup. You have a backup at home.
After the fact.
Right, okay. And for those who've been playing around with GW Basic, GW Basic will not run with Windows 10 because it uses real DOS. Okay, the term real DOS means is that it uses hard, cold, physical memory, starting with 0 and so on. With the virtual memory, 0 depends on where you start the program. So there is a modified version of it called PC Basic, and this is how you can pick it up, and you can run your basic program. Yes?
What, QBasic?
Q Basic is, and there is GW Basic, MS Basic, Q Basic. Q Basic is a little different, as that because it does not need line numbers for every code, whereas PC Basic, GW Basic, and PC Basic requires a line number for every line.
QBasic will run on Windows 10.
There is a special program
Huh?
that we can run QBasic on Windows.
Well, let me just go back to this. Okay. Let me go back to this. All right. As you can see, there's no basic on this. So all you got was MS Basic, or okay, and
Let me just stop including company basic.
okay, I have it somewhere. In other words,
Way back.
what happened was that QBasic, it was introduced and then they took it off. All right, in Windows, it was in Windows XP, you had Basic, and then after XP, they removed it. So I will show you that other piece so that you can go back to it, okay, if you need it. All right.
But you can still run QBasic on Windows 10.
No,
You can't?
nope.
Except if you
It uses-
go to another program.
What?
There is a program, I don't remember how it's called, that you can run QBasic in Windows through this program.
Okay. What you're talking about is if I set up a sandbox. Does everyone know what a sandbox is?
Yeah.
A sandbox is you create another operating system within the operating system. Sure, then you can run it, but you're now having much slower because you need another operating system inside an operating system. Okay, and the reason why the original distribution will not run is because it needs real DOS, and in other words, it goes to a physical memory, a hard, cold physical memory. All right, Windows 10 does not run on real memory, and there's a good reason for it. I don't know how many of you remember in the old days back in the 80s, if you got an error on boot record 0, oh, the whole drive is dead because you booted everything off 0. Okay? Today, you don't have to boot off 0 at all. That's the main difference. Okay. So this is the emulator. So, does anyone have any other questions I can answer for you? Yes?
Yeah, running real mode stuff, after you've started the operating system, you can't do it. But you could really run DOS on a computer provided you booted from a floppy disk.
No, you don't,
You wanna run
you don't need a floppy, okay? If you go to this other location, if, you know, that location, the boot disk area, you can then install it onto a flash drive,
Yeah, you can.
okay? And you just change when you change a BIOS setup to boot up off the flash drive as the first unit.
Yeah. But they never got rid of real mode completely. They kept talking about it because they wanted to lock out all the hackers, but.
Well, but you gotta remember, oh, by the way, like, I'm gonna tell you, there's one command I was gonna show you, but I decided I won't because you'd be tempted to try it, okay? Because if you run in administrative mode, there's a command called regedit, R-E-G-E-D-I-T.
Oh, that's my favorite command.
Yeah. In the old days, that was called the WINI file, the WIN.ini file.
Yeah.
What that is that it's the operating parameters for every application there is. You just change one value, you can mess up the whole thing.
Irreversibly.
Huh?
Irreversibly.
You know, it's not irreversible.
No,
It's
it's not irreversible if you know what to change it back to.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Okay.
The key thing to do if you're gonna play with your registry is to copy it. First thing your regedit will do, you should do it regedit if you ever invoke it, is to copy a backup copy of your registry. And there's an easy way to do it. There's a backup facility right in regedit.
That's outdated.
So, like I said, if you want to play around with DOS 1.0 and play around with it, the code is here.
Wow.
Okay. Let me show you what I have available, and I'll make it available to Michael so we can put it up on the website. The presentation, I'll come up with this. The commands, and this is a complete list of my. Okay, you see?
There we are.
All right.
Copy that fast.
Okay. Now, when you go in there in command mode, if you want to say help space MODE, you get an explanation how to use it. If it doesn't work, you could then try mode space help. If that doesn't work, you can try mode space / question mark.
Right.
Because there is, those are the three forms. They did not make it uniform because they had different people working on it and they come up with their own way. So you either say, let's say, like make directory. In other words, make directory is creating a folder. This is what make directory means. All right? And if you were to say help mkdir, it may work. Let me try it, okay? Come on.
To run to basically those books,
It's called a box.
those books,
DOS box.
those books, BOX.
DOS box.
Yeah,
And you can run that on Windows
yeah.
Run it in Linux.
Okay, so
Linux.
let me go to command mode.
I run it on XP. QBasic on XP.
Was too basic. With those boxes that I used to
Okay, DOS box.
Okay, so if I were to say help, dir, I get this. If I were to say dir, help, it doesn't work. So on these commands, and the last one that you could use, if those two doesn't work, dir / question mark,
That should work.
and that works. Okay, so those are the three ways of doing it, and it tells you what you can do. All right, I think that from my point of view, I use this for a couple reasons. One is, I didn't have it on this one, I download a whole lot of MIDI music, MP3 music, and you know how it is, you want to put it onto a DVD or CD. How do you put those names on? Okay, in DIR, you can say, don't give me the size, don't give me the date, just give me the nice little list. All right. Now, if you, by the way, do you see this here? If you notice, if I keep scrolling, in other words, it keeps everything that I've done. All right? And so if I could do a DIR and don't show me in the date and time, and then I could do something like this and just copy, paste into Word and create the label.
That /P is one of the better ones to
Yeah.
put in.
/P is,
So you don't have to get it, run off the screen, half the time it runs off and...
well, you're a slow reader, I'm a fast reader.
Oh, that, you read that fast, oh, okay.
No, it's actually, you know what it is? I've learned how to look for certain things, and I say, you know, because you're familiar with what you're looking for, right?
Yes.
Like if I'm looking for a doc file, I'm focused in a certain column,
All right.
and
For
like, you know,
the dot
Yeah.
at the end of the file.
I don't know. If I'm looking for anything else, I don't know where it is.
Right.
Okay, I'm open for questions. Anyone have any questions? Yes.
Using the, can you still use the DIR where you ask for a specific string? When you ask to see if something's in the directory, dir.doc.
Okay, DIR.
Space dot
Dot.
doc. Or
Star.
star
Star. Okay, dot DOC /S/P. Okay, how's that?
Right, and that'll be it. That'll tell you if you got it.
That's all I have there. Because I don't have any doc files, but let's do something different. DIR star.exe, how's that?
Right. if you want to look at-
/S/P.
Yeah, now you'll see all your EXE programs.
Okay.
A lot of times you want to look and if you're scanning a new system, you want to look and see what.
Now, Control C breaks it. Now, if you're lazy, what you can do is, like say, you're looking for a listing,
Copy it.
you take this, you copy it, and you copy it into Excel. Once you go into Excel, you can knock off the columns, and then you have, or you have your listing.
But Excel will allow you to search it too. It'll allow you to do
Well,
different ways to order it.
By the way, you know, I send out email, all right? One of the things I do is, have you noticed that when I send email out to you, your name is not exactly the same, right? Have you noticed that?
No.
The expiration date of your membership is on there. Okay, so what I do is, I do, you know, that's another day, okay? But what I do is, there's another level you can get into that allows you to actually, you can create programs. And by the way, although we talk about the word basic, Microsoft still uses Visual Basic, which is with all the graphic commands with the basic in developing the operating system. Yes.
Is tree still in there?
Tree? The answer
I see
is
that a lot.
tree.
I
Okay?
hated it when they took it out. Yeah, it's still there. Right? Well, for a while there, they took it out, and that was so bloody annoying.
Okay, I'll take it out.
No,
No, seriously, there's a whole lot of commands, and all I can say is play with it, but if you play with it, do it on a machine that you're not concerned with. No, really, I mean, you could kill the operating system, but seriously, there's a couple commands I tell people they really should learn, okay? One is Ipconfig, because when you can't get on the internet, you can see very readily whether or not it's connected, what your IP address is, what the DNS is. By the way, you know what the DHS is, in other words, when it goes to a DNS address and it goes into the internet, let me try this, okay? IP, oh, I don't have it, okay, and let's set up. But the thing is, you get an address like
It'll still tell you-
192.168.2.1, which is normally your router one, okay? And in the router, it goes to the carrier. Now, a carrier could be Verizon.net, AT&T.net, and they have a bunch of addresses, okay? I have a hint for you, all right? You know how you can go faster? Use one that has lots of addresses. In other words, let's say Verizon has 1,000 addresses that they can use, to move things around. I know someone that has over 1 million. It's Google. And you know what the Google address is? You ready? I'll give it to you. The two that I remember very easily, and he probably knows why, and Michael probably knows why, okay? 8.8.8.8. Okay? The other one is 8.8.4.4. Okay? All right. Now, Asians love the number 8, okay? I don't know if you know that. But the 4 they avoid, all right? Because phonetically it means dead. Okay? But I would tell, normally, like when I'm at the church, they want to go a little faster. I said, now the thing is, instead of doing automatic notification, where it says, like if you're going to Spectrum, all right? Or you're going to Fios, it's give me what you have. Well, you don't have to say give me what you have. Let me use 8.8.8.8.
Right.
Okay? Yes.
You ever run traceroute and save your routes in case you need to?
Yeah, there are commands in this. In other words, I have commands here, and I didn't want to burden everyone, but you can key in command, let's see, I think it's called netstack. What it is that there's a command, and I don't know what it is right now, but you can see who is on the network with you.
Oh.
Okay.
Net use?
Net
use on net use?
What is it?
Net use?
Net use?
Might,
That's not.
oh, that's.
No. It's I forgot what it's called. What it is that you'd be shocked at who is on the network with you, okay? And you know why? If you have Echo, in other words, if you have Alexa Echo, sorry, quiet, okay? Or you have the Home Assistant, you have your cordless telephone, guess what? It's on your network. You have a Samsung TV that is a smart TV.
That sounds smart to you, yeah.
Yeah, you don't know it, it's all on you.
What if it's not? What if the TV's not connected to a network?
Then why did you buy it?
Yeah.
It was a present.
It was a
So it
present.
can catalog you.
Yes, Richard.
Yeah, the shutdown command, is there any good jokes you can play on someone with the shutdown command?
Oh.
Yeah, very easy. You really want a good one on it? Think about it. You have a command, right? You can go into the Windows /System32. Okay, they have all these commands, right? What if you were to rename that to the shutdown to open or something like that?
It's a booby trap, yeah.
That's why I say you got to be careful, because when you go in that system area, you got to be in administrative mode. That's why, you can really hack this stuff. Or even better, right? Because I know I was in court one day because one guy was doing it, and I said, this is how he was doing it, right? He scrambled all the commands.
Yeah.
In other words, he had the routine, but he changed the address pointer on each of them, and just mixed it up and then put it right back in again. Yes.
So you change his terminal name to exit. So, when he tries to sign on, he signs himself back off again.
I gotta tell you, they talk about Defender, they talk about McAfee and all that, but when you go into administrative mode, you're in the wild, wild west, okay? I'll tell you right now.
I love it.
Yes.
When kids learn coding, do they learn DOS or do they learn zeros and ones?
When what was that again?
Kids do coding.
They don't code, they think they know how to code, they don't know how to program,
But
okay?
are they exactly, but are they using zeros and ones or?
No.
Okay.
No, nobody knew.
All right, wait.
Because
This is
Cisco
not coding.
training
This is not
zeros and
coding.
ones.
Okay? This is called command line processing.
Right.
It's not coding. In other words, instead of graphics, now, I'll speak on it differently, okay? In Windows, let me close this, all right? Okay. What you have is this picture here. This is called a GUI, the graphic user interface. Now, in Windows, this is it. In Linux, you have what? 6, 7, 8, I mean like dozens of graphic user interface.
Well,
Okay?
terminals, you mean, right?
No.
I mean, you can add a number of
I'm
GUIs.
not on the internet, otherwise I'll show you. If you go to Distro Watch, all right, and you say, I want Mint, since you're familiar with Mint,
Yeah.
you got different versions of Mint. They're all identical except for the GUI. Okay, where's Michael?
Tara, Sylvia.
Because you got the Tara, you got the Sylvia,
Bella.
you got different ones, all right? One will look like Windows, one will look like Apple because it puts all the it puts all the icons at the bottom, you know.
The dock, yeah.
Right. Okay. So so with kids, all right, I find that the younger people, and I hate to generalize, all right, but most of them, they're very good in knowing how to use something. My 7-year-old granddaughter, she can, you know, it's like, you know, what are you doing? Don't bother me, you know. I mean, no, really. But when it comes to how to build something, they've never built anything. All right? And I'm serious about it. Now, when it comes to building, there's 3 levels of building. The most detail is actually creating the design, like the circuit and so on. Maybe 2% of the population can do it. That's where you get the engineers to do it, all right? All right? Then the other part is the actual knowing how to put it together. In other words, do the how many people have done soldering? Okay, it's less than half. All right. How many people have done wire wrap?
What's
Yeah, I
wire
figured
wrap?
only one. Huh?
What is wire wrap?
Oh, you take this and you spin it, and then you go from point to point. Okay. All right. Now, how many people remember where you had to, like to today, soldering is almost gone because everything is almost wave solder now. You know, you pass it over and the solder shoots up and it does it automatically. Okay. But how many people have actually fixed a circuit board? You got, yeah, very difficult because you need a very fine point, and you can lift the land. If you lift the land, you just kill the board.
Well, you already blew it, but that's it.
Okay. Now, in terms of coding, all right, there are people, you know, let me tell you what coding is like, all right? It's like, have you ever seen an ad where someone says to you, I'm looking for a limo driver. Have you ever driven a BMW? If not, you might have driven a Mercedes, but you don't qualify. Okay? We have people, they call themselves programmers, and they're really nothing more than coders. You know why? They paint by the numbers. Okay? Then you have real programmers that know how to put things together and how to make something work. And it's not step 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like, I'll give you one of the things that one of the first programs I wrote. I wrote the first mica encoded check program. All right? The characters are coming in. Okay? And when all the characters come in, you have to figure out what the check code is and does it match up. But by the time you read the last one, you'll have very little time. So what you have to do is, hey, before I get the interrupt, another character is there. Let's see how much work I can get done. And if it turns out that this can be done for this step, I do it ahead of time. Now, people do it step by step by step. I was able to cut this down. I did this for, at that time it was called Chase Manhattan Bank. They were the first to do it with a Farrington scanner, all right? And they couldn't believe it. The guy said, I need a 20K character machine to do it. I did it in less than 10K, right? Because what I did was I set up flags, right? People write subroutines. What he did was he wrote a subroutine, says when this comes in, turn this subroutine on, and then when you exit out, you gotta turn it off. Next check comes in, reset all the switches. I didn't do that. What I did was I set up flags. Okay, one instruction, zero out the whole thing, check the flags, and you get it done. That's how I did it. That's called programming. Okay, I've done, you know, I was going to, but I think it's, you know, too deep for too many people. I can show you how I can write error-free coding. Okay, where it's optimized. I've done it. I wrote programs and write programs. Right? Unfortunately, back then, they told me I couldn't patent it.
Really?
Today, I may just go ahead and do it.
It's called a, you worked assembler dumps, right?
Assembler, compilers, interpreters,
Yeah.
object-oriented programming.
Oh,
You know what object-oriented programming is, right?
It's how I eat.
You program it with graphics. Okay? I'll give you an example. Access, you're familiar with Microsoft Access? Well, it doesn't have, the field doesn't have to be text. It can be graphics. So you put a picture in. Okay? How did I get into that? What are Chinese characters? They're all pictures. So you match on characters. Yeah.
You know, a lot of people have discovered the modern assembler language. The only place you really need it is in the MMX instructions, and to be able to actually program graphics.
You know, the thing that gets me is that people think they can, you know, they say, what programming language should I learn if I want to get into the field? And I'm saying, what are you talking about, all right? You have to learn how to think and how to do it logically. Okay? I mean, like, my daughter called me up this many years ago. Hey, Dad, they have this course and I need help. I said, you know, this was in the first week at school, right? And she says, and I don't understand Lisp. So I come on down, I looked at the manual, and I said, this is how you do it. Okay? I had a job to do, and this was between jobs. I said, what do you need? I need a Fortran programmer. I said, give me the manual, and I just looked at the manual, and I did it. In other words, it's not a question of learning a syntax, it's knowing what to do. That's why I said, if you know how to drive a car, then you could drive any car. If you can drive a manual, you can drive truly any car, right? But how many people can drive a manual car? Yeah.
I want to know what the engine does.
My daughter did that, and all of a sudden she stops it. No, seriously. By the way, I'm not knocking anyone doing it because they're different grade levels, and if you can do it, fine, because they need people. When you talk about programming, you know what? There's a big area, and they make good money. What does a web designer do? They're really programming pages.
Yeah, but they're developing on a development platform.
Okay? Yeah, they're doing it on a platform that actually what they're doing is they're throwing in parameters.
They're working from a library.
Yeah.
Almost everything
By the way,
they're doing
how many people are familiar with Fortran? Good. What is Fortran? It's nothing more than when you compile the Fortran program. Wow, how come the program is so big? They throw in all the subroutines, and all you're doing is making a subroutine call and just throwing in the parameters. Okay? They don't care, right? But that's all, you know, formula, translations, Fortran. But listen, you want to get to this? Which day?
Better get.
Come on, let's get rid of this stuff, and I'll answer questions after.
Question about DOS.
Huh?
Is there a DOS simulator that you could run a DOS program to get around these restrictions you were talking about, like using real memory and stuff?
Yeah. Go to boot disk, and you can have the early versions of DOS.